Let me get my tablet set up here. There we are. Wait for the delay to get through here. There we are. So, I think it's about time I talk about Club Q. It's been months. The tragedy happened in November. And it's about time I talk about it. See, I used to perform at Club Q. There was a time when I was there at least 3 times a week on that stage. I loved that place. I loved the people I met there. I loved the experiences I had at Club Q. Unfortunately, I decided to stop performing there in 2021. I believe it was 2021. Because one of my favorite producers had been wrongfully fired. And there had been a little bit of animosity, I feel, between performers and club management as a whole. So I chose to stop performing at Club Q in 2021 after I was a headliner for their Pride production of Stripped, which is a burlesque show. That was one of my proudest moments, but also one of my saddest, because it was the first time in a long time that I'd been a headliner. But it was sad because I knew that it was one of my last times performing there. After my favorite producer was fired and the burlesque show chose to move to a different venue, again, I chose to stop performing there. There were quite a few people who did stay on to perform and try to work out problems with management, which was fine. That was absolutely fine. I had friends who still chose to work there because that was their job. They were the heart and soul of that bar. Especially Derek. Derek was lead bartender, and he was an absolute sweetheart. He would make you laugh every time, even though he had the meanest resting bitch face you ever would see. And Daniel was he just had a smile that lit up the entire bar. The day after the shooting, I was in South Carolina taking care of my mother, who had just had knee surgery. And I woke up to about 30 messages on my phone asking, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Have you seen the news? Are you okay?" And I didn't know what was going on until I got to a message from my brother that said, "Hey, check on your people," with a screenshot that there had been a shooting at my bar at Club Q. That was really hard to deal with because at that point we still didn't know who was around and who wasn't. So everybody was messaging everybody in our community. So I let everybody know that I was safe. I was in South Carolina. And then I went in to wake up my mom. And was really gentle about it. I was like, "Mom, there was an incident at Club Q." And before she could ask what, the TV started to tell the story about the shooting at the bar. And as I was standing there watching the news story, my phone lit up from somebody calling me to make sure I was okay and to see if all of our friends had checked in. I was fine, but somehow deep in my heart I knew that Derek and Daniel weren't, because they were the first two that I thought of when people asked if they were okay. Because I knew Derek and Daniel both still worked at the bar. It ends up they were amongst the 5. Derek, Daniel were amongst the 5 that unfortunately lost their lives. So, put on a brave face, because I had to take care of my mom and my grandma. That was my job. I had to. And I tucked it away until I called my therapist. She got, well, my psych doctor, and she got me in touch with a therapist who helped me a lot during this process. I know there's nothing I could have done. I know logically if I had been there, something would have happened to me, but I couldn't help the feeling that if I had been here, if I'd been at the bar, something would have been different. And that's something you have to unteach yourself through therapy. A lot of us had that sort of thinking at the time. And a lot of us still do. A lot of us still think that maybe we could have done something had we been there. Let's face it, guys. The only changes would have been bad if we had been there. When it was confirmed that Derek and Daniel were amongst the 5, a part of our community died. A big part of our community died with them. And unfortunately, things have just fallen apart since then. I'm not sure if any of you saw the GoFundMe that was going around. That was supposed to go towards the victims. It was, but it didn't. The owner of Club Q decided to hold on to most of that donated money for the remodel of the bar. He gave the workers about $1,000 each because that was equal to 1 month's salary. The Colorado Healing Fund at first was holding on to funds, and everyone had to give an allocated receipt of what they needed funds for. And there were no guidelines given out on what could be requested and what couldn't. So that made things a lot more complicated. Like, I even helped out with a fundraising show, and I have no idea where that money went. Because we thought we were raising money for the survivors, for their families, for memorials, for our friends. But no, the owner, Matthew, of Club Q, decided most of that money was his and should go to the remodel of the bar. He completely burned every bridge with every performer that has ever stepped foot in that bar. And I'm pointing that way because it's literally up the street from me. I believe last time I checked, it was $55,000, if not more. And they were working with Bacardi and a local business to try and work on the remodel and the memorial. Right now, there are people still actively grieving at the closed bar. And they're making plans for the remodel. 2 weeks after the shooting, and after, like, the day of my friend's funeral, they reopened the men's bathhouse that's connected, Buddies. If you don't know what a men's bathhouse is, go look it up. It was disrespectful as hell to his memory to reopen the bathhouse the day of. Bar's still not even open, but the bathhouse is. That was a choice made by Matthew. Yeah, we're getting really worked up about this. And the memorial they have planned is going to be attached to the bar. That doesn't work for any of us, because people are going to be drunk at 2 a.m. puking on the giant boulders, which cost thousands of dollars. We live in Colorado, and he paid thousands and thousands of dollars for giant boulders. We live in Colorado. Come on. Boulders are everywhere. You can go up on an overpass and find a boulder the size of a large boulder blocking the street. Yes, yes, that is an actual thing that has gone out from our park services. A boulder the size of a large boulder and a boulder the size of a small boulder. It's insane. I don't want drunk people puking on my friend's memory at 2 in the morning. And what about the character of Matthew and the people who run Club Q? There was a small protest because Denver Pride had made Matthew their grand marshal of their Pride parade. There was a small protest from some of the survivors of Club Q. The general manager comes up with a giant clack fan to one of the protesters, goes, "Smell that? Smells like profit." No. Profiting off of our friends' deaths is not good. They're selling mugs, they're selling t-shirts, they're selling shot glasses, all in our friends' memories. None of us asked for that. None of that money is going towards the victims. It's all going to Club Q and the remodel. So if you donated to the Club Q GoFundMe, I'm sorry. I would request that you get your money back, because that money is not going to the victims or the families. It's going straight into the pockets of Matthew for the remodel. That's honestly been the hardest part about all of this, is while actively grieving our friends, people are profiting off of it. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. And it's still going on. It's actively still going on. And when that bar reopens, nobody in the queer community is going to go there because of how badly we've been hurt and how badly they've treated the survivors and victims of this tragedy. No queen, no drag artist is going to step on that stage because of how you lied and burned us. At first, you said, oh, we don't hire performers directly, we work through an outside agency. There is no outside agency. The producers themselves reached out, and sometimes we went up there voluntarily. There was Sunday nights were our open stage show. You could go, regardless of your performance ability, how long you've been performing, and go on that stage. It was the only place with an open stage where performers could go, and now no performer is going to step foot in there due to you and your actions, Matthew. You've burned every single one of us. Yeah, it's worth getting upset over. We lost 5 people that night. Others were injured and are still healing physically. We're still healing emotionally. I'm still in therapy, even though I wasn't physically there. I have agoraphobia. Straight up, agoraphobia. I've been diagnosed because of this issue. But that's on... I went on a hell of a tangent there. The shooter was subdued by a group of people in the bar. A group of heroes. You know, we had a vet who was there just at his first drag show take down the gunman and hold him down. And there was a trans woman, a beautiful black trans woman, who stomped in his face with her high heel. So that mugshot you see of Anderson Lee Aldrich, you can still see the shoe print on his face. And Anderson Lee Aldrich, the shooter, recently pled guilty to most of the charges pinned against him. So there was no trial. He pled guilty. He owned up to what he did. And I'm grateful for that, because that means we don't have to see the security footage. We've already seen the evidence photos. Some asshole posted the evidence photos on Facebook. So I had to see my friends' bodies in those photos. And that hurt. That really hurt. We all knew that Daniel had died protecting the door girl. We all knew it in our hearts. But to have that proven through picture evidence of Daniel lying in the doorway, I don't wish that sort of trauma on anyone. Having to see our friends in those photos was so painful and still is painful to this day. But like I said, what's even more painful is how management has treated and outright abandoned the people who made that bar what it was. Because it'll never be the same again. It'll never be what it was. I guess all we have to hold on to are the memories of the good times now. And we have to build more good times. We have to build a safe space for ourselves, because that was our only drag bar in town. That was the only one that had an open stage. That was when you say gay bar in Colorado Springs, and people know it's Club Q, because that's the only one we had. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to move on from this. Does tattooing hurt? Yeah, it does. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm not going to lie to you. Depending on where you got your tattoos, it does hurt. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Club Q incident. I miss our friends. It's not going to bring them back. Justice was served, thankfully, on one part. But we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to getting our queer space back. So thank you for joining me for this rant of Alive. It really does feel better to get all of that off my chest and to talk about it. So thank you from myself. Thank you to the family that I gained at Club Q along the way.